Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if it is your first time checking us out. Hey, today we're gonna talk about the roller coaster ride of stress that you will likely feel as you go through the process of building a custom home, where the highs are, where the lows are, and some things you can do to minimize that stress throughout your custom home build. All right, everybody. Hey, like I said, today we're going to talk about the stress of building a custom home and what that roller coaster ride looks like. It's definitely peaks and troughs throughout the build process. So I just want to kind of explain that a little bit from kind of my personal experience and also how we see most of our clients go through the process. And maybe, like I said, just to kind of help you manage expectations for what the highs are going to be, what the lows are going to be, and maybe some things you can do throughout the process to really kind of help minimize your stress. I think, like, at least if you kind of understand the stress that you could potentially see, it'll help you throughout the process. So number one, design. This is the peak. If we look at kind of this graph right here, this chart that shows, hey, I'm 100% happy about the whole process, or man, I'm pretty unhappy about the whole process right now. The top thing that we see at the very beginning is everybody's happy. You're excited. You've made the decision. You're going to build a custom home. You're going to go through this design process. You're going to start to lay out exactly what you want the house to look like. You're thinking what the finishes are going to be like, the flow of the home, meeting with the architect, probably kind of getting everything dialed in exactly the way you want it. So you're peaked out. You're 100% happy at this point right now. And that's great because it's really nice to go into a process super excited about it. So that's the design phase. And then we kind of have to, a little bit going through the design phase, people typically start to realize that, okay, I don't have an unlimited budget. And if I'm going to stay on what my budget is, I'm probably going to have to make some compromises. We haven't even got to pricing yet, but everybody kind of typically knows it in the back of their mind that, okay, I've got this design going, I'm loving it. Maybe the architect is telling you a little something, or the designer's kind of maybe mentioning something to you, or maybe your builder's kind of saying, hey, that's really cool, just be careful of price. So you just kind of get it in your mind that, okay, I don't have the unlimited budget. I'm going to have to make compromises. And that's usually where we see that mood level start to go down just a little bit when reality sets in and you say, you know what, I got to make some compromises on my house. But that's okay. You're still getting a beautiful custom home, so you're pretty happy with it. Everything's going really well. And then we see the mood typically go down a lot more when we get to pricing. Pretty obvious. That's probably what it's going to be. That's going to drive people kind of their mood level a little bit down is, you know, you've got this beautiful home design. You had to make some compromises because you knew up front that, you know, you're going to have to do that. So you did that. And now you get to pricing and you're like, man, this thing is going to cost a little bit more than I hoped it was going to be. Or maybe you just say, I'm going to have to make more compromises than what I thought I was going to have to make. And this is, like I said, this is common for everybody. My wife and I went through the exact same thing. Is you have a budget going into it. You know what your number is that you can afford. But just as you go through that process, because you kind of had this pie in the sky idea of what perfection would look like, and just not many of us have that budget. So it's not that it's a bad house that you're designing. It's just not a $10 million house, right? I mean, it's still an extremely nice home, but typically when a lot of us get the pricing back, that's when we have to go back and say, okay, I really wanted that 48-inch refrigerator, and now I've got to go with that 36-inch refrigerator, right? Like, hopefully you can get all your food in the thing. It's still bigger than most refrigerators, but again, you get that pricing back. You typically have to make some more compromises. You know, maybe you have to adjust the plan a little bit, scale down a few things, or maybe there's a big thing like you wanted a 4-car garage and you realize, like, man, I just can't do that. We're going to have to go down to a 3-car. So whatever it is, whenever we get to pricing, that's typically when we see people kind of their mood level just about bottom out on the front end of the process. So pricing, nobody's really excited about it. Nobody has the unlimited budget. So if you get to that stage, don't be depressed about it. Don't feel bad. Realize that everybody that builds a custom home goes through it, and it doesn't mean that your house at the end of the day isn't going to be a beautiful, amazing home for you and or you and your family. So after pricing, what happens? So we get the pricing back. Now our mood's pretty low, and we've got to make the decision: are we going to contract on this home? You've maybe paid a little bit of a deposit with your builder. Depends on how your specific builder's process is. But now we're going to have to sign the contract. Like, this is it. Like, we're inking our name on this thing, and we're building this house, and we're committing to this amount. So you go through that process, and now you're going to sign the contract. This is actually where we see people's mood usually kind of start to pick up a little bit. You've already got the pricing, so you've had time to kind of digest those numbers. Now you've come to terms with it, and now you're going to sign the contract, and you're kind of on the uphill swing now from the time you sign the contract. It's usually not too long after that. We're kind of through like all that pre-design phase stuff, and now we're getting pretty close to starting construction. Sign the contract to build. moods are swinging up, everybody's getting a little bit more excited about it, and then we get up to, it usually curves up pretty fast from the time you sign the contract until it's time to do the site preparation, maybe some tree removal, whatever it is, and excavation to actually put in the foundation of the home. This is where most people are peaked at again. They're crazy excited about it now, like their dreams are coming to reality. They can see things progressing, like I said, maybe some tree removal or some dirt work, whatever it is. So from that point, from the kind of that site preparation all the way through the excavation, the pouring of the foundation, the framing of the house, everybody is super excited during that phase because you see a lot of progress. Like I said, you've made the decision, you've come to terms with the numbers, you like your finishes that you've picked out, and you're seeing your home be built. Like I said, the foundation's going in, the framings, the actual house is being built. Everybody's super excited at this point in time. So that usually, however long that takes, maybe a couple months or so, however long that period takes, maybe up to 3 months. Once all that happens, then the nature of building a home, things aren't quite as exciting after that. It usually kind of starts to go, the mood level kind of goes downhill a little bit because now we've got to put in all the rough mechanicals. So our HVAC system, our electrical rough, our plumbing rough, all those things that ultimately at the end of the day, we all know we need it because we want to make sure our toilet's flush and our faucet turns on and the light switch works, but it's really not that exciting. It's not like the fancy tile or the paint colors that you picked out. And this is a pretty long process to get it's just the bones of the house complete. So like I said, it's framed, and now we're doing all that kind of boring stuff a little bit. Like nobody really comes by their house a whole lot while it's being built just to watch electricians pull wires through the walls. That's usually not that exciting. So as that process happens, it's not a real drop off, but we kind of see people just get a little bit almost bored with the process. Like I said, they don't stop by the build sites quite as much usually. So the mood level kind of trends down a little bit throughout that rough installation process. And then we get to the drywall. There's a little spike in excitement because when you get the drywall on the walls, you can kind of see the rooms take shape a lot better. It's kind of hard to see the shape of the rooms when you're just looking through framing material, right? Through a bunch of 2x4s or 2x6s. But now you see the drywall go up. So you're like, all right, now I can see these rooms. I can see like how big the master suite is, and you're super happy about it. You can see how big the kitchen is. So you see the rooms take shape. So there's usually a little spike. People get a little bit more excited about that. And then they start sanding the drywall, and then everybody's just like, oh my gosh, this process is never going to end. Nobody wants to come by and watch guys sand drywall, right? So that process is usually about I would say that's another trough in the system. So you've got that trough at pricing before you contract where your mood's just pretty low, and then after just the process is kind of dragging on now, and now you get to where they're just sanding drywall. You've already seen the rooms, you know what they're going to look like. There's not a whole lot of excitement right now. But once the drywall gets sanded, now it's time for the finishes. So, there's obviously an order to things, but we're talking the paint's going to go on the walls, the trim's going to go up, the interior doors are going in, the kitchen cabinets, the bathroom cabinets, the tile, the showers, all that stuff is going to happen. And this is where we see people get super excited again. So it's pretty cool to see is that once the finishes start to go in, then everybody gets really excited because they can see their dream coming to reality. That tile they picked out that maybe they had a little bit of anxiety about, like, I don't know how good that's going to look together. The designer said it was going to be okay. And now you see it in the bathroom and you're like, man, that looks awesome. I'm just super excited about whatever, the master bathroom or whatever piece of the house it is. So throughout that whole process, everybody starts to get super excited again. And then, as you kind of come down to like, we call it punch out stuff where the house is pretty much done, but there's a few little odds and ends that have to get done. People, their mood usually dips off just a little bit because they're like, I just want to get in the house right now. So, like I said, through that finish process, everybody's super excited. And then as you can imagine, it culminates whenever you get the keys and you get to move into your brand new custom home. So, like I said, it truly is a roller coaster ride. It's sheer excitement at the design phase. It drops off really fast as we go through the pricing and just kind of that final design to kind of see what you're going to have to compromise on. And then, man, once we start moving dirt and actually building the house, people get crazy excited about it, which is awesome to see. They want to come out and be on site all the time to see the progress as the house is getting framed, really taking shape. And then after all that's done, like I said, it's just all those rough-in things, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, kind of people die off a little bit. And they're like, this is just killing me. I just want my house to be done. This is not exciting. I can't see any progress. It's one of the longest periods of the build, and it just looks like nothing's happening from a lot of people's standpoint. But like I said, it's the critical stuff behind the walls that you got to do right. So it takes a little bit of time. So like I said, it truly is just a roller coaster ride of emotions throughout the build process. So now let me just give you just a couple little tips to kind of help mitigate that stress throughout the build. I think understanding what that kind of those ups and downs are going to look like and where to kind of expect those, I think that helps a lot. It was information that I personally didn't know when my wife and I went to build our custom home. I didn't really, have the foresight to think like, oh, I'm going to be super excited, and then I'm going to be depressed, and I'm going to be super excited, and I'm going to be sad again. I didn't think about any of that. I thought it was going to be just sheer excitement the whole time. So I think just having that expectation management of, hey, there's going to be peaks, there's going to be troughs, ups and downs throughout the process, but you're going to be real happy at the beginning, you're going to be real happy at the end. I think that's what really matters. So just manage expectations and just really think through that. Another thing, this probably goes without saying, but I've got to mention it, is that the better quality of custom home builder you choose to build your house will make a huge difference on the level of stress that you have throughout the process. A good quality builder is going to do an amazing amount of planning up front so that you don't have as many choices that you have to make throughout the build. They're really going to try to, kind of forecast and see what's super important to you that maybe you're not even sure about. They've built a lot of homes, hopefully, so they can understand what it is you're trying to get to, kind of what your end goal is, and they're going to help you through that design and planning phase to make sure that after you get through that piece of it, building the home should be pretty easy. You shouldn't have to be stressed about, the framing or the drywall. Say the drywall goes in and you walk into this room and you're like, oh my gosh, this room is tiny compared to what I thought it was going to be. A good builder is going to help you kind of identify those things and say, hey, we've got this much space right now. Maybe we need to bump this wall 6 inches so whenever you bend down to get your stuff out of the dryer, you don't hit your backside on the wall behind you. A good builder and a good architect are going to be able to forecast those things based on their experience. Then maybe they're just things that you're not going to really think about. So there shouldn't be a ton of surprises whenever the house actually starts to get built. You want to identify those potential issues ahead of time. That is, I can't stress how much that's going to minimize your stress if you can just identify those pain points at the beginning. And like I said, a good quality builder is going to help you through that process and really help you with identifying those problems up front, not at the end. So a good quality builder is going to minimize your stress an untold amount. Like I said, I can't stress that one enough. The next thing is just really being, do your research, figure out, really kind of try to think through what you want the house, the design, the style, the finishes, as much of that you can figure out before you start the process. And, everybody changes a little bit, but most people typically have a general style that they like. So the more of that you can get figured out at the beginning so that you're not stressed about making those selections or maybe making changes throughout the process, that's going to help you a ton. So if it's just you're building the house individually, just take a lot of time to think about that. I highly encourage couples, married folks, to really, really have a good long conversation and think through as much of these details ahead of time. Because what you don't want to have happen is, during the build, things are going to be stressful enough anyway. So you don't want to add that extra stress on of, husband or wife says, well, I wanted this light fixture. And the other one says, I wanted that light fixture. And you kind of get into these little battles and everything seems like a huge decision when honestly, at the end of the day, there's a lot of stuff you're going to stress over that isn't really a big deal whatsoever. I know that was definitely our experience. So the more of that stuff you can have figured out at the beginning, have those good conversations about, hey, here's how I envision the home. Is that how you picture it? Let's sketch some stuff out. Let's see if what the architect has. Okay, is that what you kind of picture the home as? Or is that a totally different vision? So just making sure that you can get as much on the same page as possible, as early as possible in the build, is going to save you untold stress as well if you're building the house with your significant other. So finding a super good quality custom home builder that has that experience to help you identify potential problems ahead of time, and then also making sure that you talk through whoever you're building the house with. Like I said, a married couple, individual, whoever it is, just make sure you really, really think through that design process to make sure everybody that's involved is on the same page, or as much as you can be at the very beginning. That'll help things throughout the process as well. And then the last thing is just timeline. Everybody's going to be excited to get the house done. So I go back to the first comment of just finding a custom builder that not only is going to deliver a really great product, and they're going to help you identify problems at the very beginning, but also that they're going to stay on budget and on time. Time and budget are two of the biggest things that are going to stress you throughout the build. If your budget has to adjust a bunch because of changes you made or because of just natural changes for whatever reason, that's going to be stressful. And also the timeline. Everybody has a mark on the wall of when they think their house is going to be done. Most builders, good quality builders, depending weather delays and all that, are going to hit that mark on the wall. So just, man, if you go with a builder that maybe doesn't have the best reputation, maybe they're a little bit cheaper, you might pay for that in stress throughout the process. So a builder that's going to hit that timeline deliver the house that you're dreaming about on the day that they said they're going to, that is going to help alleviate a lot of stress throughout the process as well. So stress of building a custom home, it is real and you will be stressed, but there's some things you can do to mitigate that stress throughout the process. And really, like I said, expectation management, knowing you're going to be stressed, knowing it's going to be a roller coaster ride that's pretty much everybody follows the same graph, chart, whatever you want to call it, that same line that we talked about. So just know that ahead of time. That's going to help you out a lot. So hopefully that's beneficial. And hey, like I said, this just a reminder, everybody, our channel, it's all about building custom homes. We are a custom home builder here in the Colorado Front Range area, but we just want to provide everybody the information to make the best decision about building a custom home if you're thinking about doing it. So we try to talk about everything from the financing to the build to the design, everything throughout the process. Just like I said, provide all the information to help you make the best decision possible. And of course, if you are here in the Colorado area, we'd love the opportunity to talk with you and see if we're a good fit to work with you guys. So if you would, please, hey, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so you get all the notifications. We're going to put out new info for you every single week. Until next time.